Timberborn is not a simple game. When you're a new player, there's an in-game tutorial, sure, but you move past it fairly quickly, and it only gives an overview on the game's mechanics. Worse yet, the game comes with two factions, and the tutorial is primarily aimed at playing the Folktails, offering little help to those starting as Ironteeth, which offer a modified playstyle. Today, and in the rest of this series, I aim to make starting as Ironteeth a little less daunting for new players. Though you technically need to have played a tiny bit of the game to unlock the Ironteeth, I'll start from the very beginning, assuming you're completely unfamiliar with the game or genre, to make this guide as accessible to new players as possible. Founding a new save on Plains, this episode will go from the start of a colony, covering the very basic mechanics. The stuff aimed at keeping your beavers alive, going over the buildings you will have unlocked from the start, and how or whether to use them this early, and ending on building your very first dam. So let's start the Ironteeth Beginner's Survival Guide in Begindale. And we will press Start and begin our colony. Now to start off, some basic controls. WASD do move the camera. You can also normally drag at the edge. I can't because I don't like that and I turned it off. If we right click, we will rotate the camera. Left click does not do anything. Middle click moves the camera the same way WASD does. The first thing we are going to want to do after starting our colony is immediately press the spacebar, which will pause the game. Now we want to do that because this is a survival colony builder, which means that we only have a set amount of time before our beavers here will start to die. If I were to left click on one of these beavers, we will pull up their needs. We will see basic needs here. The top three up here are going to be the three that can kill our beavers if we do not satisfy them. Those are hunger, thirst, and sleep, just like basically any other living thing needs. Hunger is obviously satisfied by food. That's going to be up here. We actually have 130 berries that we start with on normal, so we don't have to worry about that as much, but we will need to work towards getting more of them. Thirst is going to be satisfied by water. We don't have any water when we start on normal. Sleep is going to be satisfied by our beavers sleeping. Sleep is one they cannot actually die from. If you don't let them sleep, they will just fall asleep in the middle of whatever they're doing. Now, beavers start with all of these needs completely filled. We can tell that because this bar is fully green. We can actually see on sleep it has a slightly darker green here. That is the bar depleting. But all of our beavers will have this full from the start. Once it passes this little yellow bar in the middle, it will continue to go down, and we have that amount of time before the beaver will die. For sleep, it is that amount of time before the beaver will fall asleep. It is just going to be these top two basic needs that will kill a beaver if they are not satisfied. Once we have those satisfied, our beavers will, in theory, survive indefinitely. I do mean at least until they die of old age, but I will talk about that later. So before we even let our beavers do anything, we should plan out how we are going to satisfy those needs. We have berries up here. There are berries over here more that we can get. We can technically get these too. And then we have a river that runs through this entire map. This will be where we get water from. Now food is going to be the easiest to get. We will come down here to the bar at the bottom. This contains all of the buildable buildings. We will select food right here in the middle. It's the image of the carrot. And then we will do the building right on the left, which is the gatherer flag. This takes nothing to build. If we click on it, we will see we have this green version of the building that indicates that the building can be placed wherever you are hovering over. And if you were to put it somewhere that there are issues, like down here in the river, it is flooded, then it would go yellow. Buildings can also be red, but that is more for multi-space buildings here. It means that you can't build there because one of the spaces is taken up by something. So the other thing to note here with this gatherer flag, it's creating this blue outline that moves along with the gatherer flag as we move it. that is going to be the effective range of the gatherer flag. We can see it a bit better if we hold it over here. It's a full square. It goes quite a bit away from the gatherer flag. But what we will want to do is we will want to put this somewhere probably right about there, whereas we see that blue outline encapsulates all of the berries that we have on the map. So we will click and it will set this building up to be built. So it is now queued up to be built. Right now at the very beginning of the game, all of those builders are going to come from our district center. As we see, this has 2 workplaces in it. We've got Quadvux and Sullion in this district center. Once we unpause the game, they will immediately move to build this gatherer flag, which will then have its own workplace that needs to be filled by a beaver. These workplaces are automatically assigned to beavers as buildings are built. They will only go to adult beavers. These little baby beavers cannot fill workplaces. And some, like this district center, have multiple workplaces that they can hold. The gatherer flag will only have 1. Now, the one thing to note, as this gatherer flag is currently placed, it will not currently work. We need to come down here to Paths and Structures and go to the very first option, Path. These, much like the gatherer flag, are free to build. They also spawn instantly, so we don't even have to wait for the builders to build them. Every single building in the game, without exception, needs to be in some way connected via path to a district center. So we just draw that path in. Then once this gatherer flag is built, it will be assigned a beaver. As we see, this construction speed is going up here. And Rougeaboo has taken this workplace. Now a gatherer flag will by default gather berries. There are a few other things later on we will find that they can also gather, but their primary use this early is gathering berries. Berries are gathered from berry bushes. We will see we have one here. It's blueberry. Every default map is going to spawn with berry bushes somewhere that are easily accessible. Modded maps may be a different story. As we can see, there's a lot of information on this blueberry bush. The 2 things that are going to be most relevant to us right now: it takes 12 days for a blueberry bush to grow all the way from one of these little seedlings to a full plant. And then every 12 days after that, the blueberry bush will produce 3 blueberries. So as we can see, clicking on this blueberry bush, it has blueberries, so both those are at 100. If we click on this seedling, it is currently at 3. It's going to take another 11.5 days to get up to a full bush, and then after that, it will take 12 days additional to produce 3 blueberries. Now, all of these bushes that we have right here can be accessed by this gatherer flag, which is why we put it there. So we will be able to, for the moment, just let that do its thing without worrying about it, which will bring us to the second need, water. If we come down here to water, we will see that the first and only unlocked option here is the deep water pump. I forgot to mention before, but you can tell it is unlocked because it does not have this red locked icon. Now, the main thing we have to worry about here, compared to the gatherer flag, which was free to build, the deep water pump takes 12 logs. We don't have any logs. We will have to acquire some before we can actually build this. So if we come down here to wood, we will see the lumberjack flag. Now this, much like the gatherer flag, is going to be free to build. If we click on it, we will see that lumberjack flags have that same little radius that the gatherer flag did. This is going to be the radius in which lumberjack flags will cut down trees. So we will try to place this one right about here where it can access all of these trees that we currently see. And then we will connect that up with a path. Then we will unpause the game. Our builders will come over here to build the lumberjack flag. And then what we will immediately see is that it it is filled by Sizozil. Wow. Sizozil, yep. And sort of confusingly, it pops up with nothing to do in range, despite the fact that we have all of these trees. That is because trees, unlike berries, need to be marked specifically to be cut down. So if we come down here to cut trees, we have marked tree cutting area, we have unmarked tree cutting area. They do the opposite things. We will want marked tree cutting area. It comes up with this square. We can then select a large number of these trees and let go. And then those trees are going to be marked for cutting. They will only cut the adult trees. They will not cut the baby trees until they are grown. And if we were to click on these to see, these are pine trees. They take 12 days to grow. They produce 2 logs. So we will need to cut down 6 of these pine trees to build our water pump. Now, because these trees are marked, they will be cut down. Because these trees are not marked, they will not be cut down. And the other thing they will do naturally is spread. So these adult trees, they have a small chance every day of making pines in adjacent squares. So you have the option early on if you wanted to select trees that are adjacent to other trees, but not all of the trees like this. These trees here that are selected green would be cut down, but then they would have a higher chance of regrowing because they have adult trees next to them. This would allow a forest to naturally regrow on its own. Now we are actually going to do none of that. We're going to set this entire area for cutting. We don't need to let trees naturally regrow because we will eventually have a way to plant trees and grow them without having to rely on natural tree growth. But for example, these trees up here will naturally spread. The berries also will naturally spread like that. Now we may also see that these trees here may have spread a ton from where they originally started because they have nothing that will kill them here or here. So these forests might grow, whereas ours over here will just be chopped down. Another thing to note is that these trees are dead. You can tell that because they are not on grass and also because they are dead. They will not regrow. They can be cut down and we will end up using these for lumber at some point, but none of these are going to grow into full-fledged forests. With that lumberjack flag built, we may as well just get started on our deep water pump. Again, this will take 12 logs to build, but we will be gathering logs as time goes on. Now, this deep water pump, it is a fairly large building. You will have to find space for it, and it needs to be touching water with that outcropping there at the bottom. On either faction, that will need to be placed directly into the water to produce potable water. Now, this part of the river is actually a decent spot for us because we can tuck this in here with the drain in the water. But if we were to want to build a drain on this side, we would see that we have a ton of wasted space that would prevent us from building another drain right here. What we can do is if we press F, we will mirror the orientation of this building. So we could, for example, place a drain there and then place a drain there and get more space by flipping it. We also, of course, do not just have to place the drain in this one orientation. If we press R, we will rotate it. So if we wanted to build a drain on this side of the river, we could also do that once we have a way across. None of that is necessary for what we are doing right now, so we will place this here. We will connect it up with a path, much like we did to all of our other buildings. And then if we unpause the game, we will see that logs will be cut down. The builders will bring logs from this lumberjack flag as they are cut down, and they will take them over here to this deep water pump, and they will build it. Now, this deep water pump will also have one job that it needs. So it will employ one of our beavers. And we see the builder here come and start building that water pump. Now it will take 12 logs. So as we see, it is only 2/12 of the way there. But they will do that over the day as Zozazil here cuts down logs. All we can do from this point on is wait. While we are waiting, now this will take a few minutes if we let it happen in real time. Luckily, we have the ability to speed up time. Up here on the top right, we have game speed 2 and game speed 3. That is not exactly 2 times or 3 times, but it is faster with game speed 2, and it is very fast with game speed 3. It is now nighttime, during which we will see our beavers leave their jobs and wander around because they have nothing else to do. Eventually, they will gather around this district center and they will all fall asleep on the floor. We will see that this will hit its maximum, and then Javilla here will fall asleep on the floor. They will spend the whole night resting on the ground, and then once the sun is back up, they will once again go back to their jobs. We can see our beavers are starting to get thirsty, so hopefully they will finish this deep water pump soon. And there we go. The deep water pump has been built. Ozon, or maybe it's Ojan, has taken up in the deep water pump. We can see that they're now pumping their log. Every third of an in-game hour, they will produce 1 water here, which satisfies the basic need thirst. They will begin to fill up this deep water pump with water. Other beavers will be able to come down here and drink water to satisfy their needs, which if they are unemployed, they will just do when it starts to get low. If they are not unemployed, they will do once it hits this yellow bar. They will stop what they are doing and they will go and get water. So that's going to be the very basics of keeping our colony alive. They will be able to, for a time, survive like this just fine. But as we saw before, berry bushes take 12 in-game days to produce berries. So while we can sustain this population for some time with these berry bushes, eventually we will hit a point wherein these berry bushes do not have berries and our beavers are getting hungry. So let's move past our basic needs here and start with farming. So farming is going to be largely how we get a sustainable source of food. If we come down here to food, we have the option for the farmhouse. This is going to be 20 logs. It's going to employ 2 beavers. We will see once again that it has that radius of effect. And for this farmhouse, we will place it right about here. Now, what I'm interested in more than anything is going to be the amount of green land that this area is covering. This grassy green texture means that an area is farmable. It is directly related to how much water is nearby. This broken brown dirt texture cannot be farmed on. So we want to place our farmhouse somewhere central, somewhere where it can access a lot of green land like this. Ideally, we would have been able to place it, say, over here, where it is on the brown unfarmable land, but that also cuts us off from accessing some of the farmable land, and I want to maximize the amount of that farmable land we can use. We will, of course, need to connect this up with a path, and then while they are building this, we will have to choose what crops we want to plant. If we come down on the left here, we have plant crops, and we have kohlrabi, 3 days, 2 kohlrabi. Cassava, 5 days, 1 cassava. Soybean, 8 days, 2 soybeans. Canola, 9 days, 3 canola seeds. Corn, 10 days, 2 corn. Eggplant, 12 days, 3 eggplants. Important to note, only kohlrabis can be eaten raw. Everything else, there is additional processing we will need to do to be able to eat them, which means that for the moment, none of these are going to be useful for us. The one exception is cassava. I will explain why we will not be planting that in a minute. Now, as I said before, these need to be on this green land here. The border area here we can plant somewhat on, but it's kind of hard to tell where it begins and where it ends and where exactly is or is not irrigated. So we are just going to avoid it for the moment. The beavers can tell, they just won't plant on the unirrigated part. So we could do something like that and have them only plant the ones that they can actually plant. I don't want to do that. Please go back to your workspace. We will, however, plant some kohlrabies right here. We'll just go for maybe a 5x10 area. What I'm doing here is not an exact science, but I only need to feed 13 beavers. We produce 2 kohlrabi every 10 days for these. About 50 kohlrabi are planted here. This is probably good enough for kohlrabis until we move on to more advanced farming, which we will be doing in the next episode. Now, like I said a moment ago, we could technically plant cassava and process them. Part of the reason I'm not doing that, cassava take 5 days to produce 1 cassava, and then we need to ferment them in this fermenter, which I'm not going to go over right now in detail. It is something that is unlocked from the beginning. It takes 25 logs, but as we can see at the top here, it will take 4 cassava 2 hours to produce 10 fermented cassava. It is a job and it will require power, which we will go over in a minute. The time taken to produce 4 cassava and then put it in a fermenter and make 10 cassava out of that 4 cassava means that per hour, cassava is less efficient than kohlrabis are. If my math is correct, you get about 1 extra kohlrabi for every 6 fermented cassava you get. So it is really not worth investing in this early. We will get to it later on once we have extra beavers. It will give us a benefit to also be fermenting cassava, but right now it is going to take too much labor and take too much time, and we are just focused on surviving. Since they're sitting here, I'm actually going to expand this a little bit. I'm not going to be focusing on efficiency right now, but I do want them to be a little bit more efficient because these are barely grown. Ideally, these farmers would never be sitting at the farmhouse. They would always be doing something. We may just have to wait a little bit for these kohlrabis to grow. And then between harvesting and planting new ones, new kohlrabis will grow. I think that is a big enough field for us right now, though, and it'll produce more than enough food for the time being. With our farm built, there's only one other basic part of beaver life that we need to take into account before we start expanding out our colony. That is going to be the fact that if we click on, let's say, Sligo here, Sligo is 34 days old. Beavers do not live forever. By default, the maximum age a beaver can reach is 50, and then they will pass away. Which means, especially since many of these beavers we started with are getting along in age, we need a way to replace our beaver population. We will do that by coming down here, confusingly, to housing, and this first option here is going to be a breeding pod. It is the only way that we can reproduce our Ironteeth beavers here. It is going to take 10 logs to make. It is then going to take berries and water and some time, and it will produce a new baby beaver like Shingus here. So we will place this down. We will connect it up with a path. Now, breeding pods are not workplaces. They will just function automatically as the day goes on. The one thing to keep in mind is that they do need water and berries brought to them. That is, at this stage, going to be done by beavers without any job, or if all of our beavers are employed, it will be done by the beavers after they are done working. We can see that this icon pops up. That means it does not have berries and water, but we have some unemployed beavers, so we will soon see. There we go. They put berries and water into the breeding pod. It starts progressing along this bar here, and once that is filled, it will produce another kit. Now, kits, like Shingus, take 6 days to grow to adulthood. During that time, they do need water and food at the same rate as other beavers. They just cannot work. Now, a single breeding pod like this, if it has constant berries and water, will produce a kit about every 5 days. So a single breeding pod like this will sustain a population of about 10 beavers over their lifetime. We currently have 13 beavers. And at this early stage of the game, we probably want to build to about 20 or 25 beavers. So I will go ahead and I will build a second breeding pod right here and attach that up with a path. That way our beaver population will be slowly growing. Slowly is the operative word there. And we will move up towards that 20 to 25 goal. Along with, importantly, replacing the beavers, not Rotsack, the beavers like Sligo, who are getting up there in age. So with our population now sustained, it is time to move on to building towards the future. And the way I am going to do that is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to build an inventor. An inventor is another one of those buildings that we get from the start. It is 12 logs. It has one job, and then it will take 1 hour to produce one science point. Science points we can see up here in this top UI here. As we can see, we only start with none, so we don't have any. Science points at this stage in the game have one function. They are used to unlock other buildings for use. So for example, the forester here is something that we will want to get once we start expanding out the buildings that we are building. It costs 30 science points, but it allows us to plant trees and bushes. So it is a very important function for a colony like this, which means we will want to get it fairly quickly. We will then need to build an inventor. I'm going to situate that back here for no particular reason, just because I think it's a good spot for it. We will connect it up with a path. Our beavers, as always, will come to build it. And then as a beaver is in here employed, they will build up science points for us. Now, science points are going to be one of those things that we kind of perpetually need in a colony. So the faster we build them up, the better. 1 science point per hour, fine. We'll be able to make use of that as the colony grows. But you know what would be better than 1 science point an hour? 2 science points an hour. We can build ourselves a second inventor here. As we see up here in the top left, this number is going to be our employed beavers. This number is going to be our unemployed beavers. The number in the middle is buildings that are built that have no employees. Or really, it's going to be the number of jobs that have no employees, not buildings. So we have 5 unemployed beavers. We may as well put at least one of them to work, working at this inventor and getting us more science points. However, we may not always have so many unemployed beavers, especially as we expand out our colony. I want one of these inventors always running, but I maybe don't want this inventor to be running and employing Aline here if, for example, we need water and every other beaver is employed. Now, if some situation like that were to happen, we could come over here and we could pause this inventor, and that would free up the job and free up Eileen over here to go and do something else. However, that requires micromanagement, and it requires me paying attention to what is happening in the colony down to a very specific level. I don't want to do that. It would be great for me if I could just say, only staff this inventor if we have unemployed beavers. Now, while we can't do that at the moment, we can later. What we can do is set workplace priority. So this inventor I'm going to leave here on the neutral workplace priority. And this inventor I'm going to put at a lower workplace priority. We have in order lowest, lower, neutral, great, and greater. So this will automate to say, if there are unemployed beavers, then this inventor will be filled. But if a job opens up that is neutral, great, or greater priority, and there is no other beaver to fill it, Eileen here will leave the inventor and go and fill that workplace. Now we can also do that in the opposite direction. Water, we will always need. We always need someone pumping water. We can set this to greater. That means that regardless of what else is happening, as long as there is at least one open beaver who does not have a greater priority building that they are working in, they will come over and run this deep water pump. Now, in general, leaving most of our buildings as neutral priority is probably our best bet. The one thing that I will do, I will make the farmhouse great priority, which will mean that if only one beaver can work, they will work this water pump. If 2 beavers can work, one will work the water pump and one will work the farmhouse. 4 beavers, they will make sure that all 3 of these jobs are filled up, and then they will fill one of these other ones somewhat at random, and on, and they will only fill this inventor if everything else is full. Now with that, I don't know how long the actual video is currently, but I have been playing for about an hour. So it is probably smart that the game has auto saves to save the game. I'm going to do that by pressing escape here, bringing up the main menu. We then have save game. I've actually saved once already, but we can just hit the save button. It auto-populates with the colony's name here so that we can keep track of our saves, and we can just hit save here. Again, the game does autosave by default. You can adjust that in settings here with autosave, but it is, of course, still a good idea to also save your game manually. Now, with all this running, there's another important thing we need to consider. If we were to say, click on this deep water pump, as I mentioned before, this will continue to run until it is full of 15 water. After that point, once it has a full 15 water, it stops. The beaver will just sit out here in front. So Ozon would sit in front of this water pump doing nothing. The beaver is still employed. And actually this lumberjack is a better example. 20 logs in this lumberjack. So Sizozazil is sitting here doing nothing, even though there are trees to cut down, because Sizozazil has nowhere to put logs. This also means that if we had something that we were building that takes more than 20 logs, it would deplete this lumberjack flag immediately, and then we would have to wait for Sizozazil to cut down more logs, as opposed to just having some in hand. Now, believe it or not, Timberborn has a solution for this. It is down here in storage. There are 3 different types of storage buildings. We have our piles. Those are going to hold construction materials is probably the best way to term them. All we are currently producing that a pile would hold is going to be logs. We have tanks. These are going to hold any sort of liquid, so water. And we have warehouses, which is kind of the catch-all for everything that does not go in a pile or a tank. Now, we currently have the small and large pile unlocked, the small and medium warehouse unlocked, and the small tank unlocked. That small pile is going to be 4 logs, 20 capacity. Large, 12 logs, 180 capacity. Small warehouse, 3 logs, 30 capacity. Medium warehouse, 15 logs, 20 capacity. And our small tank is going to be 15 logs, 30 capacity. We're going to start out by building a small tank right here next to our water pump. Now, it is important to note that when filling storages, beavers will use the closest one that is empty first. So if we were to build a small tank here, and then a small tank over here, which actually might be a good spot for one. So we will do that. This beaver will fill this small tank before filling this small tank because it is closer. When beavers need something from a small tank or any storage building, they will go to the one that is closest. So if this beaver needed water and this tank is built and full, he would go to that one. We do need to set the storage for these, so we will click on this and we will go to the only liquid we are producing, water, and we will do that with this one as well. To note, there are different behaviors up here, but we can't actually make our beavers do them yet. We will then build a pile for our logs. Now I'm going to start with a large industrial pile for that. I'm just going to put that right here. And I'm doing the large industrial pile rather than the small pile because it is 3 times as many logs for about 9 times as much storage. And yet we will need a large pile for logs almost immediately. This is something that we will end up building a lot of. So we'll make a large log pile. We do not need the small pile, which only holds 20. I will then build us both a small warehouse for holding kohlrabi and a medium warehouse that for now will hold berries. That's kind of in a weird spot though. Now I'm not being super precious about where I place these things. I could be more precise with it, but ultimately most of this is probably going to end up getting torn down. And when we tear down buildings, we get a lot of the materials back from doing so. And all of these are going to be logs anyway, which will eventually be pretty cheap. I'm not super worried about where these are placed, even if we're going to have to tear them down in an episode or two. Now, it's important to note that we have multiple things in the build queue. Those will go in order. So this was the first in the build queue, then they'll do this pile, then the small warehouse, then the large warehouse. If we wanted to change that, we could assign priority to what they're building. So if, for example, I want them to build the berry storage first, I can make that high priority. And if I want them to build the kohlrabi storage last, it will actually go in that order currently, but I could set that to low priority or even lowest priority. And while it's not really relevant right this second, it's also worth noting that if this was highest priority, but they didn't have the materials for it, and they did have the materials for this pile, they would build as much of this warehouse as they could and then move to this pile, even though this hasn't been built yet, because they can't. So it's only going to matter when they are able to build. They will move on down the list if they cannot. Now, I do also want to point out that this small tank of water will not be filled until this small tank of water is filled. As I said before, they will try to fill the closest storage building if they can, and then they will move to a further along one. So this is going to be 0 out of 30 for a while. While they don't normally, there is a way to get beavers to move stuff between storage buildings. That's going to be down here under district management. It is the hauling post. This is 20 logs, 10 planks, which we don't even have yet, and 10 beaver jobs. We will likely be building one of these in the next episode, but right now we don't really have the excess labor capacity for hauling posts to be necessary or worthwhile. So we're just going to skip out on that and go over it later. Now, if you're thinking we do have some extra labor capacity, we do. However, now that we have this extra storage, I want to use some of that labor for getting more materials. Namely, I want to build another lumberjack flag and another water pump. Basically, both of these are resources you cannot have too much of. More water stored is more days where your beavers will not dehydrate themselves to death. More wood is more wood that you can use to build things. So the easiest way to do this, I'm going to click on this deep water pump, and then I'm going to press B, which will allow me to automatically copy what I have selected, and then I will just place this deep water pump next to it. Now, if you have nothing selected, it'll also work if you just hover your mouse over something. So if I hover my mouse over this lumberjack flag and I press B, then I will be making a lumberjack flag. If I had the deep water pump selected and hover over the lumberjack flag, it will default to the thing that I have selected rather than what I am hovering over. So just keep that in mind. But without anything selected, I can just grab this lumberjack flag, put it there, and then I can also do that with paths and connect that in. You can do that with plants, even trees, not with water, that doesn't work, and not with dirt, because we can't build that right now. When it comes to copy and paste, I can also do it with a storage. It will then take on the attributes of the storage that we have copied, but I don't want another tank right now. Now this deep water pump is set to highest priority. I don't want this for the second deep water pump. I do just want high priority. But I am going to make the construction site highest priority, so they will default to this over any of the storage buildings that we were building. Now, in general, if you're setting just regular priorities, you should use low, normal, and high to set your priorities. As these are long-term, you should use very low and very high only for things that you either really do not care about how long they're going to take in the case of very low, or need done immediately in the case of very high. When setting priority, it is important to remember that if everything is highest priority, then everything is normal priority. Now, once this pump is built, we're still going to have 2 unemployed beavers left. And to make use of that, I am going to preemptively start by making a lumber mill. So this is going to be 20 logs. It's going to take 1 log and turn it into 1 plank. This lumber mill can employ up to 2 beavers. We will right now have it set at just 1. And it also takes 75 horsepower. Horsepower is going to be generated by stuff down here under power. So at the very beginning, we have 2 options for power. We have water wheels and we have power wheels. Power wheels are going to be 50 logs, produce 300 horsepower, but they're going to take 4 jobs. If we were to expand and have a lot of extra beavers, this might be a reasonable way to generate power. So for our purposes, a much better way of generating power is going to be this compact water wheel. This generates up to 120 horsepower. It is going to be based off of the flow of the water in the river where it is placed. It's going to cost 25 logs, and we can see exactly how much power it is going to generate by this number underneath the ghost outline we see when we're in the build mode. So if I were to hold it here, for example, it will generate 32 power while it is sitting there. This is directional, so if I hit R and rotate it, it actually generates nearly double the power if it's facing up and down rather than left and right in this spot. I've done a bit of testing. We've got 60-ish, 40-ish horsepower over here, 30, 20 over in this area. If we set it right here, right at the apex of this bend, it'll generate 86 horsepower for us. So that is where we are going to build that. And then we are going to build a lumber mill to utilize this power. However, we cannot get power from this wheel to this lumber mill without connecting them. We will do so by coming here under power and going to power shaft. This is going to be a single log. And when we hover over here, we will see those blue gear icons. That means that the power shaft is connecting to buildings. So if we put that there, then we will see that it is connected to this water wheel. And then also this outline here shows that it is going into the building. Now I will need a path that comes all the way down here, and I did not really plan very well here. So I'm just going to run it around our farm. Otherwise, they should really have no issues building this. However, I do want to note one thing when it comes to power. We have our water wheel here, and we have a power shaft going into this building. Though there is not space for it, if we were to get rid of some of these trees and then build another industrial lumber mill right here, the power will transfer between the 2 buildings. So we could build another industrial lumber mill there, and the power will go through all 3 of them. This concept goes for any solid building. I meant opaque here. Solid is actually an in-game descriptor for buildings, and power transfer does not apply to every single solid building. So forget that I said solid building here, I mean opaque. So if we were to put an inventor here and then a lumber mill on the other side of the inventor, power would transfer just fine. If we were to put a warehouse here and then try to build a lumber mill on the other side, because the warehouse is not solid, power would not transfer through it. So that is something to keep in mind when you are planning out an industrial area. What buildings you are going to use to transfer power. Now I do want to do one thing before this lumber mill is even built. I want to go down here where it says workplaces 0 out of 2, and I want to press this minus sign to decrease the desired workers to 1. It will not eat up all of our labor to have this, it will just eat up one of the workers. Now the other thing to know about an industrial building like this lumber mill, it has an input and an output storage. Where the deep water pumps only have the output storage, where they only output water, they don't take anything in. The industrial lumber mill takes logs, turns them into planks. So it is going to have a small number of logs that it can hold, and it is going to have a small number of planks that it can hold. Now, normally these logs would be reserved for the lumber mill. If for some reason it was holding a bunch of logs and we needed them for something else other than turning them into planks, we actually could hit this pause button. They would then take all of the inventory out of the lumber mill, move it to a different storage, and then we could use it. So it's not stuck in there. It is just temporarily reserved. We could build a small pile here and fill that with planks, and I will end up doing that at some point in the next episode. But right now, this is going to store up to 13 planks. That is more than enough for anything we're going to be doing in this episode or the beginning of the next one. This will chew through 1 log for each plank, so honestly, 13 planks is going to be more than enough for us to have in reserve, at least until we get a forester going. And now the absolute last thing I want to do, I want to use up what will be the final job after this is built. I'm going to build 1 more lumberjack flag because these are free, and I'm going to put that here so that we can start cutting down these trees as well as these trees. And I will make that highest priority because I want them to just get started on it. It'll only take a few seconds. I'm also going to just real quick put in some extra connectivity in a few of these spots so that they're not walking around quite as much. All of this is subject to change, by which I mean it definitely will change in fairly short order. Oh, and we have a beaver here with a chipped tooth. Now this is a condition that is exclusive to lumberjacks. Only beavers working in a lumberjack flag can get chipped teeth. This will make the beaver unhappy, and it will also make the beaver take 3 or 4 times as long to cut down a tree. Sizozazil will take a lot longer to cut down trees while they have this condition. Fortunately, we do have a fairly easy way of getting rid of said condition. If we come down here to well-being, we have a teeth grindstone. Now this only takes 5 logs. We can just attach it to a path, and then Sozazil over there will come to the teeth grindstone to fix their chipped teeth. So we will go ahead and we will build a teeth grindstone, and I don't think we have anything in the build queue, but I will set this to high priority anyway. And we will see Sozazil down here. They are chipping away at their chipped tooth, and that will just lower until it is no longer a problem. There we go. They're back to cutting down trees at normal speed, and they are as happy as they should be. And we have a drought approaching. So this is going to be the main gameplay loop, is preparing for droughts. We have 3 days until a drought hits, at which point this water source, and all of these bad water sources will all dry up and stop producing water. Once that happens, fairly quickly all of this water will run off the map and everything will be dry. Now our beavers themselves may be fine. They will probably not get dehydrated, depending on the length, with 80 water stored up. However, let's see what this will actually look like if we don't do anything about the water. So as we will see right now, all of the water flows off the map. all of the land starts to dry up, our trees will be fine. They take 15 days to actually die. Our berries will be fine. They take 10 days to die. And our kohlrabies will honestly probably be fine with this first drought. They take 2 days to die. The drought only lasts 2 days. However, this will be the shortest drought we face in the entire game. These droughts will keep getting longer. If we do nothing, by the next drought, which will probably be 2.5 days, our kohlrabies will die. Now, when they're drying out like this, our beavers can still harvest them. But once they actually die, they have nothing to harvest anymore. We will also notice that the water pumps stop pumping water. That's fine with these water tanks, although our beavers are all thirsty. I don't know what that is about. Since our water wheel is based off of water flow, the lumberjack is also not working. We have 13 logs, though. They wouldn't be working anyway, but they can't work now. So while this is probably survivable, it is obviously not ideal. So instead of letting this happen, let's do something different. Or at least try to, because as we see, we've only got 2.7 days. And what we're going to do is give in to our inner beaver and build a dam. Now this early, the best spot to build a dam is going to be the shortest distance we can find. I believe that is going to be any of the lengths right here. We're looking at about 6 along. That's 7 there. If we were to go down here, it would be 8. So we probably want to choose that spot or that spot for our dam. Now, usually when constructing a dam, you want to have the pumps on the water storage side of it, and you want to have water wheels on the outflow bit of it. I'm not going to be that precious about this right now. We just need to store water. If we come down here to landscaping, we can see what we got. Now, the basic structure we have is the dam. This is technically a weir, but we're not going to be precious about it. We could, if we wanted to, just build 6 across like this. However, that will take 120 planks. Each of these dams is 20 planks to build. Now, the way a dam functions, if I were to put this here, a dam will block about half of the water from going through. So it will take any of the water here that is under 0.65 and it won't let it through until this height is above 0.65, and then it will start letting water through. So we could build this, but that would be a lot of logs, 120 as I said. Now the alternative to doing this, if we were to get rid of some of these, right next to the dam here we have the levee. This is going to take 120 science points to unlock, but we have gathered 230. Instead of the dam's 20, this takes 12 logs. And instead of blocking half of the water, the levee will block all of it. So if we were to build something like this, it should still let through enough water where this does not flood. But we have reduced the amount of logs that we need by 24? No. Yes. Hey Google, what's 8 times 4? We have reduced the amount of logs that we need by 32. So rather than 120, this is going to be 88 logs, which is about as many as we are storing. So we should be able to do this in the 2.4 days, as opposed to the 120, which may take longer than that. Now, the other thing I am going to do, I'm going to adjust our working hours. So currently our beavers are working 16 hours of the day. That is this part of the clock up here. And then the other 8, they have to get food or water or anything else. That is not going to be enough for us to build this dam before the drought hits. Because of that, I'm going to bump this up. I could go to 18 hours a day. That would allow our beavers to work without any real repercussions, particularly when they only sleep. I could also bump it to 20 hours, but then our beavers are not going to be getting enough sleep. They're going to be falling asleep in the middle of working. And I could obviously go all the way to 24, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to leave it at 18 so they get their full 6 hours of sleep. And hopefully they should be able to finish this. If we get to 1 day left, I will bump this up even more, but I think we should be fine. Now we have 24 hours left to go. I honestly think they should be able to build this all before the 18 hours are up, but just to give them the wiggle room, I will set this to 24 hours. And I will adjust that back down when they finish the dam. And there we go. As we see, it was actually not necessary. 18 hours would have been more than enough for them to finish the dam. We can see that the upstream depth here raises a little bit, whereas the downstream depth is largely the same. But we are storing water, which we were not before. But here is the drought. And we will see that the water up top will begin to diminish until it gets to our dammed off area, and then our water will stay here because it cannot flow off the map once it hits this part of it. Now it is important to note that this water will not sit here forever. It will slowly evaporate regardless of anything else that's happening. We also are draining it for our water pumps. So these will slowly take the water out of this, I guess you could call it a reservoir, or maybe a basin. It'll slowly take the water out of this basin for these pumps and for evaporation, but we don't have to worry about this with how short this drought is going to be. In the meantime, though, since we are in no danger of running out of water, I think the last thing we should do is focus on our beavers' well-being. If we click on our unemployed beaver here, whose name is Veriska, we'll see that we have two things that we still need to take care of: shelter and wet fur. Wet fur, we're not going to have a very good way of dealing with today. Normally, the easiest way to deal with it is by sending your beavers through the water, but we don't have a reason to send them over here, so they're not going to use any sort of water path that we build. So we will have to deal with that in the next episode, but we can deal with shelter. So as we know, when nighttime hits, our beavers will wander around until they get tired enough, and then they will lay down and fall asleep on the cold, bare ground. Now, though they do not look super uncomfortable here, they are. They're actually very uncomfortable because it is -3, so that is undoing all of the benefit of having their hunger, thirst, and sleep taken care of. Now, though we cannot take care of it for tonight since they are all already asleep, we can build them someplace to sleep. If we were, again, to come down here to housing, we have barracks. Barracks provide sleep and barracks provide shelter. They take 40 logs and they house 10 beavers. We have 14 beavers now. Unfortunately, 3 of them, including Sligo, died of old age on us, which is going to mean, since we had 13 jobs, that this inventor is going to sit unused for a little while. But we can make sure that whoever comes to replace those 3 beavers has a much better life than they did. We will come down here and we will not unlock, just select the barrack. We can see that these are too high. They're about 6 by 2 in size. And we will just build 2 of these side by side, connect them up like so, and our beavers will come and build those, and then they will be able to sleep in them. However, if we were to click on Rujabu here, there are a few other things we could do to benefit our beavers. While shelter will be taken care of once these are built, that's just one of our beavers' basic needs. Now they are getting a nutrition benefit from eating kohlrabies instead of raw berries, but there's a whole list of things that beavers want to do or want to be by to improve their well-being. The things that we can do right now, we can build them campfires, which will benefit their social life. We can build rooftop terraces, though we're going to have to do something a little special for that. And we can build decorations, namely the shrub. All those will offer a small benefit to our beavers' well-being, which may seem a bit silly in that we are living in a very harsh land here with no water to focus on well-being. But it's not just a nice thing to do for our beavers. It does have a tangible benefit. Improving well-being will gradually buff our beavers. So we have working speed, we have movement speed, and we have life expectancy. As we can see, hovering over working speed, currently, they have no bonus to working speed. If we get their well-being to 5, they will work 20% faster. If we get their well-being to 2, they will move 5% faster. And if we get their well-being to 7, they will live 20% longer. Now that living 20% longer will also affect how effective these breeding pods are. Because it will extend their life by 20%, these breeding pods will be able to support 20% more population. So we'll go up to about 24 beavers that 2 breeding pods can support. Now, for well-being buildings like these, beavers do not go to them while they are working. They will take these hours that they are not working to go to well-being buildings. If I were to build a campfire here and connect it up, once it is built, when we are at a time like this where they are not working, they will go and they will sit at this campfire. Now, the campfire does have a limited number of visitors, which is not relevant to this small of a population, but will one day be relevant to a larger and more populous colony. But for us, it should be enough to boost all of their campfire social life need. In small diversion, the drought has ended, so these should begin producing water again, which will once again start making our water wheel turn and make our lumber mill work, though it has no capacity, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Ooh, we are getting a bit of a flood. This tends to happen when water first flows through. There's not a ton we can do about that at the moment. It is just kind of a side effect of these dams and the way they work. We will see, though, our well-being is shooting up because we have both our campfire and one of these barracks. We can see that it has become full of beavers, but we've only boosted our well-being up to 4. We can get it a decent amount higher. We will do so by building a rooftop terrace. Now, rooftop terrace is unique compared to a lot of buildings in that a rooftop terrace cannot be built on the ground. It must be built on top of another building. Now, most buildings can actually be built on top of other buildings. The game does fully support vertical building. Rooftop terrace is just odd in that it cannot be built on the ground. I believe it might be the only building that is like that. Even roofs can be built on the ground. But it can also be built on anything. It could be built on a storage building. It does not have to be built on the roof of a barrack. So we will build it on the building that I have been hovering over a few times while explaining this, on top of this berry storage. And then we will need to unlock stairs. These are going to be the first building that requires planks. It's 1 log, 4 planks. 70 science points, but we have 248, so that is fine. We will build those right there, and then we will build around here. And then the final thing to build to boost well-being is going to be this decoration, the shrub. Now, unlike our well-being buildings, which the beavers have to actually visit themselves, decorations work differently. Decorations have this small area of effect, and beavers will get the benefit of a decoration when they are in its radius. So if we were to place a shrub here, which we shouldn't, this beaver, Solian, would be getting the effect as it walks past this shrub. If it is not in a shrub's radius, it will very slowly lose its shrub bonus. So we don't want to build it there. We want to build it in areas that are high traffic. So for example, a good spot might be here, where most of our beavers are going to be walking down this road to get anywhere. If we were to build shrubs here and here, there's no way for beavers to go anywhere that does not put them within the radius of a shrub. However, this is still not the best place to put them. We have two good options for where to put a shrub. Decorations have this extra little quirk, because if you place them somewhere where that area of effect encompasses a building, such as right here, we will see that the campfire actually lights up with that same area of effect. Any beaver in the area of effect of either the shrub or sitting inside any of the seats in the campfire, not just the one that is covered by the shrub, will get the benefit of the shrub. For that reason, there are two places I want to put shrubs. Number one, right here. This is going to mean that any beaver walking along this bit of the path, or visiting the campfire, or visiting the rooftop terrace, is going to build up the benefit of being near a shrub. And I'm going to put one right here, which means that any beaver that is in a barrack, which will be any beaver that is sleeping, will get the benefit of a shrub. And our well-being is going up and up again. We are at 6. And if we click on this, we can see how that breakdown is happening. We are still losing some average well-being because our beavers do not have shelter, but they are getting to use the campfire and the rooftop terrace, and they are benefiting from being near a shrub. I am noticing that we have beavers over here who currently cannot cut down anything other than this one tree, because all of the trees have already been cut down. I will move these over to here because, again, there's no real penalty for moving our lumberjacks. They're free to build. And then mark these trees up here for cutting. Though we will need to find a better solution than that going forward, and we will be finding a better solution for that in the next episode. And our well-being has eclipsed 7. So what we should see is that most of our beavers, do have all 3 benefits. The quicker working speed, the quicker movement speed, and the quicker life expectancy, as we see our next targets are going to be 10, 12, and 17, but we will worry about that as we get to them. Our final barrack has now been built, and other than the scavenger flag, which we will talk about in the next episode because we don't currently have anywhere to use it, that will cover every single building that you can build from the start of Timberborn, and 2 that you do need research to unlock. In the next episode, we will start worrying about logs. We will also worry about getting a more consistent food source than just kohlrabies, and maybe even work on some actual industrialization and not just a lumber mill. So as always, if you want to see that as well as the rest of the episodes I end up doing, then please consider subscribing or join my Discord, where I post notifications for every single episode as they come out. Either one works. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I hope you either learned a thing or two or enjoyed yourself. Begindale will continue. Yep, that's what I'm going with for this one. And I will see you next time.